do you want? Yeah.
We're just doing the old mic robbery.
Oh, thank you. Does that work? Yes. Thank you.
Hey, so welcome to C3. If you haven't been here before, welcome. If you're a newcomer or if you are on holiday or maybe you've just come back from holiday, so welcome back. We've got a really awesome message at the moment called 2020 Vision, which is really unpacking a bit about kind of God's vision for us and making sure that we've got 2020 vision and clarity throughout it. So we've got a guest panel up here, which is awesome. These guys are amazing. Hey, guys.
Hello.
How are you, mate?
I'm good. So, Jared, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, as Brad said, Jared. I've had to work out, I think we've been coming to church for about, I'll swap with you,
Yeah. Got it.
for about 9 years. I've been in Headland about 11, 12 years this year.
Yeah, wow. And what's one thing that you really love about C3 culture here?
The one thing, it was quite easy for me to come up with an answer for this. It was really the people that we've connected with over those 9 years. I think it's those people that make it easy to still be in town.
Yeah.
It's quite a transient town, but we've got lifelong friends that we've made in this town, and I know that once we do leave, that we will keep in contact with these guys.
Amazing. And Jen Angel,
Hello.
welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Genevieve Angel. If you were here last week, you would have seen a beautiful, lovely lady that was sitting where Bek was, and that's one my beautiful mother, and I'm one of her twins. And I've been going here for 17 years. And one thing that I love the most about this church is just how much, like Jared said, the people here and how they make it such a great family, such a family dynamic. And like all families, there's extended families. So wherever you go in the world, there's usually a C3 church there. And I'm lucky enough that when I move to uni, there's a C3 church where I'm going. So I'm going there, and I've already been there, and I already feel like I'm part of their family just because they're C3, and when they hear I'm C3, they're like, oh my gosh, you're already part of the family, and that's really good.
That's so good. And Beck, no stranger to the stage up here.
No, I'm getting pushed up on stage more and more.
It's a good thing.
Thanks for having me again. Beck, and I've been in town for 10 years with my husband and 2 kids, and we've been coming to the C3 for about the last 6 years, I'd say now. So, yeah, I love as well, like these guys have said, people, the sense of family, that's just a given. So I love that about C3, about this church, but like Jen was saying, C3 as a global unit, I guess. But I love that C3 also, as a culture, we're keeping up with modern times. I love that about C3. I think C3 is really adaptable and moves with the times, which is cool. And I think that C3 is also, as a culture, very encouraging and uplifting. So I love that too.
That's awesome. That's so good. So what we're talking about today is we're talking about faith. And it's really what comes back to what happens throughout the year when, new year, new you kind of wears off a little bit. And you need something to really sink your teeth into in terms of faith, which I think is an awesome thing to talk about. So look, Beck, to give us a bit of context, maybe for someone who's maybe still investigating God a little bit, what does it mean to you to have faith in God?
One of the things that really sticks out to me, and I don't know where I've heard it and whether it's come from a verse or the Bible somewhere, I'm sure it does, but the whole concept that men or people, we really have this attitude where we're asking for God to show us before we trust him, but God says, trust me and then I'll show you. And so I think that whole sense of complete trust in God and putting your plans aside and believing in his, to me that is ultimate faith, and it's putting that faith in him when you don't even know the reason why or the outcome or the benefit it's going to give you. It's still giving rid of your control, I guess, or letting go of your control and putting it completely in him.
Yeah, that's good. And Jen, you were talking about the difference between relationship and religion, right?
Yeah, for me, with faith, I think it's very important to distinguish the difference between a relationship and religion. For me, relationships, they're personal, they're one-on-one. So when you have a relationship with God, you're putting faith in God. And, He's God, so He's not going to disappoint you. While with religion, it's more of an organisation, and you're putting more faith in the people. And the thing is we're all people, we all make mistakes. So you put faith in people, you're going to get disappointed. So I think that's very important where you put your faith in. And if it's a relationship, you're going to find better outcomes and just grow stronger with God.
That's good. That's awesome. Jared, what about you, my friend? What's for you? What is it? Putting your faith in God. What does that kind of mean?
So, for me, it's all about trust. Trust is the word.
Yeah.
That's sort of what faith means to me. Trusting in God, trusting that the Bible is real. A verse that really I read a couple of years ago that really sort of explained it well to me and my mindset was Hebrews 11. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Now, we all hope for a lot of things in life. Are we confident in that? And that really sort of helped me understand it more.
That's awesome.
And an analogy is, I'm a Sparky by trade, and when you go and work on a PowerPoint or anything that's live, you have a multimeter, you test for dead, that there is no power there, and then you touch it. You've got to
make sure it was right, wouldn't you?
You've got to have a lot of faith in the equipment you're using because the consequences are potentially death. Yeah. So even now, like you test and it says, the meter says nothing, but then grabbing those cables at the same time is, even now, I'm still a little bit uncomfortable about it. So that's faith, is like sitting on this chair, you have faith that this chair's going to hold my weight, Some of us need more faith than others.
On here, so. That's so good. I love that analogy about the multimeter as well, because you're putting your faith in someone else's work as well, aren't you? Yeah, that's really cool. That's so good. So, Jen, can you tell me about a time where you were really hoping for God to come through on something?
Yeah, so for me that would be very recent because I'm moving to New Zealand for uni. And I found out through a series of unfortunate events that I cannot apply for a student loan because I'm not applicable. So I'm having to fund the entire endeavour myself with the support of my amazing parents, but still with no sort of financial support. And so I couldn't do accommodation with uni just because it was so expensive, and I haven't got a job over there yet. So I took a leap of faith and I made a phone call to a lovely lady from the C3 Ellerslie in Auckland, lovely name, named Jackie Williams, and same name as our Jackie here, and just as amazing. And she was great enough to kind of advertise me to anyone in the church who would like to board, and I kind of had to hope and pray that someone would be willing to take this strange Australian person into their house. And I was really just expecting one offer, and it took a while, but I eventually got 3 offers. And so that really just made me feel so much more confident in this big step that I'm taking, moving over to New Zealand, knowing that there's people out there who are taking care of me and that God, most of all, has his eyes on me. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's so good. So how did that feel? Like, what did that do for your faith through that process?
Oh, it made me just so much more confident that even though I'm doing this huge, scary thing, God's not going to leave me or, forsake me because I'm moving. He's staying with me. And because I'm living with a Christian family, I know that I will have God in my household and I'll have him wherever I go. So that just really strengthened me.
That's amazing. That's awesome. When do you head off?
February.
We haven't got long left,
start
do
of
we?
February.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing. So, Beck, how about for you?
Yeah, there's been a number of pivotal points, I'd say, in my faith. But one that really sticks out to me was probably when I was just coming back into my faith. So after growing up with the church and being as part of the church and being strong in faith, and then kind of walking away from that relationship and from the church, but then coming back to it. So then learning to trust God again and learning to believe in what he had for me. I was coming back to work after having kids, and I'd had a certain plan for my life. I'd had a certain direction, a certain...
'Cause what were you doing before Well Women's? You were...
So before Well Women's, I'd done a number of things. I did a lot of safety and training, actually. And then I worked here at the church for a good amount of time, and that was a really great experience, and I loved that. And I can't remember if this time was before I worked here or just after, but it was where I was contemplating what to do next, and I did have a certain goal or dream, and I'd done some study, and I thought, I want to work with the town of Port Hedland. And I wanted to get in there and start a career and progress a certain way. I sort of had a vision and a plan of how that looked and what that was how that was going to play out. So I was in that time of prayer and asking and faith, like, come on, God, this is what you've got for me. I'm sure this is the plan. And so I went through a lot of praying over that and wanting that to come to fruition. And I remember a really pivotal point when I was praying and I was standing out the front of the council chambers going, come on, surely this is where you want me to be. And I felt God say to me, no, that's not for you, walk away. Wow. And so that was a really difficult thing to do, because it was completely letting go of all control. It was believing that he had a better plan for me than I did for myself, and it was stepping into that. And God really gave me huge insight that day. He kind of showed me that I could pursue my plan and I could go down that path and I could work for the town of Port Hedland, but it wasn't the best path. It wasn't the best plan for me at that time. And he showed me, insight into that I could continue to pursue that, but he had better plans. And I'm so grateful that I listened to him and I was in tune with him then, because the plan that he had for me was way bigger and better than I ever could have anticipated. And his plan had me reaching higher and achieving much more. So I'm grateful for that.
So when you're outside the front of the council building, what did that feel like? We unpacked a little bit about this last week, about how God kind of speaks to you, but how did that work for you? Yeah,
so I think God speaks to us all differently, right? So there's no one answer for anyone and how God speaks to you. But I think when we're close enough to him and we're open enough to him, then we hear how he's talking to us. And it wasn't that I heard his audible voice again. It wasn't that he said to me, Bek, walk away, however he sounds. It was my own thoughts and my own voice, but it was a strong sense of, no, this is just not for you. So, it was... And then I guess I physically walked away as well. It wasn't that I just had to change my way of thinking. It was I was standing out the front of the council and going, okay, this is it, and it was walk away. So I actually had to physically turn my back and walk away from that. So. And
that was the decision you made there and then?
Yeah, it was.
Moment.
It was a then and there decision.
Wow, that's awesome. Jared, how about for you? Was there a situation in your life that you've had?
Yeah, this one's to do with my wife as well. About 8 years ago, similar situation to Dave and his mum. My wife's sister had she was 21, just given birth and had a brain clot. So we flew over there like straight away. And I remember standing next to the bed because she was just asleep, had a coma or whatnot. And I suppose they asked us to pray because I think Jazz and I were the only ones who were sort of going to church at the time. And I remember standing around her bed praying, like what we said earlier, hoping. And I remember looking at her face, just expecting her eyes to open and everything be okay. But a few hours later, she did die. And I remember us having, at the time, we were so, we had, I was actually like really believed that she would get better, and that there would be a sort of a happy ending, I suppose, is what we were sort of chasing. Because it's hard, like you see a young daughter, she's 21, basically die in her father's arms, He was holding her and she just passed away. Something very hard to see. And at the same time, you think, is this God's plan? It questions a lot of things, and I suppose, like even to this day, we still don't know why. You still don't know. You still don't have all the answers that you're chasing.
Yeah.
But I suppose reflecting back on that, we were so we focused so much on look, she died, we didn't get what we were wanting, but potentially if you change the whole mindset, and you focus on, what has God done, what has God done through his love for us, potentially there was another outcome there. Maybe the people in that room needed to hear Jazz and I pray for her to trigger something in their mind, I don't know, there's always God knows the bigger picture, and I know that so often you can focus on what you didn't get, why things didn't work out for you there and then. But I think we need to be patient. It's a struggle. I'm going to let everyone know. You don't just, decide to trust God and then, yep, I've got faith. Faith is something that's you're going to be tested, and it's something that you will fail. I think everybody, if we're all being honest, at times we've all failed. But it's all about who you surround yourself with, how you react to that failure. And if you read the Bible, there are so many examples of strong men and women of God who had faith, but there are just as many examples of those who failed in their faith. And I think it's important that for me, those failures are just important as the successes, because you learn so much from those failures. And I don't think there would be so many failures written in the Bible if they weren't important. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you basically answered my next question as well.
All right, their turn.
Which is awesome, which I'm going to ask these guys as well. But, we've all had situations in our lives as well where, we've been praying for something hardcore and it hasn't necessarily come through, or maybe hasn't happened yet, at very least. So how do you kind of deal with those impossible prayers when you've got, this crazy, audacious faith, but it hasn't been answered? Beck, do you have some thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think sometimes perhaps we have really high expectations as well in terms of our prayers and how they're answered. I think we don't recognise sometimes that God actually does answer our prayers. It's just perhaps not in the way that we were praying for. So, yeah, for example, for me, the story I just told before, that was a true answer to prayer, but God didn't give me the outcome that I had originally wanted, but he totally answered my prayer. So I think that sometimes we can be praying for something specific and we see it a certain way and we want that prayer to be answered in a certain way, but God does answer us. It just might be different to what our expectations are. And so I think that it's just learning to change our mindset a little bit. Sometimes the answer to prayer is about the change he's making within us. So I think that we can just hold on to that a little bit. Yeah,
that's good. Jen, what about yourself?
I don't know if I need to add anything more. Those two pretty much nailed it. That was awesome. Well, for me, I find that with unanswered prayers, like Beck was saying, it's like a mindset. It's what you see as unanswered. And for some, you are looking for something specific and you're looking for a specific answer to something. And when it doesn't come, you see it as, oh, he didn't answer my prayers, that, he did it wrong. While you should be seeing it as like you should open your mind more to the possibilities of what can come to this. Because something you wanted didn't come true doesn't mean that it wasn't unanswered. Because he can really push things into your life and even affect other people. Like you were saying, your unanswered prayer doesn't necessarily mean that other people didn't get affected by it. And so, yeah.
And you've had a specific situation in kind of the last day or so that's kind of built that up a bit as well, hasn't it?
What's that?
We're just being sick.
Oh, yeah, me being sick. Yeah.
That's right. You haven't quite got your voice back yet, do you? But it's almost there.
Yeah, no.
And how were you yesterday?
Oh, I couldn't speak at all. I got sick on Monday for absolutely no reason. And I was very, very sick at the first few days. And I was like, this is fine. It'll be over by Friday. I wasn't even thinking about Sunday speaking. I'm like, it'll be totally fine by Sunday. And then Friday rolled around and I'm still in bed coughing up and being like, this is not good. And then Saturday, I'm like, that's all right. Saturday, that'll be my breakthrough. That's going to happen. I even texted these guys and they gave me some really encouraging words. And I'm like, yep, this is going to happen. I'm going to wake up Saturday. Woke up Saturday and I had razor blades going through my throat and I could barely speak above a whisper. And I'm like, this ain't good. But then I woke up today on Sunday and I'm still croaky, but at least I'm allowed to speak and I'm able to speak. So that was just a huge miracle. I was expecting to wake up with just silence because that's usually what happens. But no, God really came through on that.
That's so cool. Awesome. That's awesome. So guys, when you go through these kind of situations where you have these kind of unanswered prayers, do you think it's wasted faith?
No way. No, it's definitely not wasted. I think it's even the definition of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing is wasted. Anything that changes us and makes us see more of him is not wasted, for sure.
That's good. What are your thoughts on that, Jared?
Yeah, similar to Bek. I sort of touched on it earlier. Failing is one of the most important steps of succeeding, I don't know too many people or anyone, if you go speak to any successful person in any sort of field, they'll tell you that they've failed more than they've succeeded, and it's what's made them stronger. Yeah. And there's plenty of examples in the Bible of people who have failed and then succeeded.
Yeah, as I think Jono pointed out a couple of weeks ago, if you just read Hebrews 11, it's full of it, constantly. Yeah. It's an amazing reminder when you read that. And
I get encouragement out of, I just imagine being, I touched on this with you yesterday, the parting of the Red Sea. Imagine being an Israelite, seeing that. That would be like us going down to the boat ramp in port and then walking across to Finnegan, Imagine seeing that, and then, that verse was having an assurance of what you cannot see. Well, that's something that you can see. Though the Israelites saw that, and yet still their faith failed several times following that. And we think, man, if I saw something like that, my faith would be like this, and it would stay like that. They were seeing examples of huge miracles and God in action. They could physically see it, and it just shows that we're all human, we're all people, and it's something that we struggle with, and I know I do.
Yeah, that's good. And what about for you, Jen? Do you think it's wasted faith?
No, I'm the same as these guys. For me, I find the only time faith is technically wasted is when you take this unanswered prayer and see it as a sign that God's not real, or it tears down your relationship. And the faith isn't wasted because your prayer was unanswered. It's wasted because you didn't let this opportunity to expand your relationship with God and see, all right, yeah, something specific didn't happen, but what does this mean? Does this mean that God has a bigger plan, or that the reason this didn't happen was because something even better is happening? You know, there's so many reasons. And
Yeah, awesome. That's great. So, hey, I want to dig a little bit deeper. So we know that the enemy will use a range of tools to try and stop us from kind of having that faith in God, that he's going to come through in situations. But some of the tools that he kind of uses, I guess, are stress and anxiety. And I think we've all kind of encountered that at some point. And they've become pretty big problems just in today's world as well. So how do you guys think you would overcome that through faith? What's some tips and hints that you've got? Beck, do you want to talk to that a little bit?
So around stress and anxiety.
Yeah, and just using faith to kind of overcome that.
Yeah. So again, I think stress and anxiety comes because we perhaps see things in a certain way and it's not happening in that way. So that makes us anxious and makes us feel stressed. So faith is the ultimate thing to get you around that, to get you through that. And the stress anxiety is not going to go away. And yeah, I think we all experience it and I know it very well. But the faith gives us more tools to deal with it. It puts more tools in our kit to be able to face it and overcome it quicker. So, yeah, again, it is just pressing in, I think. It's pressing in those moments where you can't see or don't understand, and it's relying on his understanding and not your own. And, yeah, it's, again, just putting your own self aside and just trusting wholly in him.
That's so good. Jen, what about for yourself?
I find with stress and anxiety for me, in the past, the thing that has induced it and caused even more stress for me was that I felt like I had to have control over everything. I had to be in control of what's going to happen, what I'm doing, how am I going to get there and there. And the thing is that's just going to cause the most stress because you can't control what's going to happen in the future. And you can only see a little bit ahead. You can't see the bigger picture, which is what God can. And so I find for me, the best way for me to control my stress and anxiety is to actually let go of control and to realise that I am not in control and that God's in control and he's bigger than me and he sees everything. So him being in control is better for me than for me to constantly be grabbing at everything and trying to manufacture my life the way that I want to, because that's never going to work out. So yeah, so it's control, letting go of control.
Yeah, that's good. I like what you said a couple of days ago when we caught up. I think you said something along the lines of stress and anxiety. Me, yeah, we're good friends. We go way back.
Yeah, no,
I thought that was great.
BFFs. Yeah, no, me and him, we had slumber parties. We were like BFFs. We loved each other, and they loved my nails. So yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Jared, what about for you?
My one's sort of what you guys have touched on earlier as well, but I think you just need to really just trust in God, be patient. Not a patience where you're just sitting back and waiting for answers or waiting for a voice, but I think you really need to be actively searching for answers.
Yeah.
What you touched on earlier, how you didn't just sit back and just go, oh look, I can't get funding. I need something to happen here.
Yeah.
You need to actively go out. You need to make phone calls, and then doors open and close. And for me, that's like I don't hear. Beck said everyone. It's different for everyone. I don't hear voices or get feelings. I sort of take action, patient action, not just run around in circles. Looking for an open door somewhere. But I think you need to and look for those signs, that positive and negative signs.
Yeah.
Like Beck touched on, there are, like, you might think that it's good, but you need to not only look for the good, but also the not so good, and then act accordingly. And I think God sort of directs us on the path that we need to be on.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think the world as well teaches us to continue to look within, and I think that's quite dangerous, or it's a lot of responsibility on us to find the answers ourselves. And I love, God is look up, look to me. And so that it takes all the pressure off you, because we can look to him in those circumstances. And I know that, I just feel the heavy weight of having to find my way on my own. And so I love that we have God to hand it all over and to lay it on him, and to not just look here. We can look up to him. And I think the world, we can get carried away in just trying to find worldly answers and just trying to find answers within ourselves, and that creates stress and anxiety because we don't have it all. The reality is we're broken. The reality is we're not whole without him. So
Yeah, and the world, I find, uses very temporary fixes for stress and anxiety, like, just sniff this scented candle, go, indulge yourself in some TV, or even worse ways are through, alcohol, sex, drugs, those sort of things to reduce it, and which make your life even worse in some case, or in just the less cases, they just don't do anything. They, make you calm for a little bit, but then, once you're off of it, you're just going to go, okay, now back to the anxiety, back to the real world. And that's where I find the world really messes up with the whole dealing with anxiety and stress.
Yeah. So, Jen, while I've got you, practically what does faith look like to you?
For me?
Yeah.
Well, for me, especially over the last few years and even the last few months, for me it's going through with things you are fearful of, not because you're fearless, but because you're doing them despite being fearful of them. Nice. Going to another country, making phone calls, which used to make me cry and run into another room and just not want to talk. I hated making phone calls. Now I'm doing it regularly in order to, asking people for board, calling up my potential boarders, calling the uni and everything like that. That's been a big step for me. Not because necessarily I've overcome those fears, although I have overcome calling, but going to a new country and everything, all new territory for me. But it's not that I've become so fearless that I can do anything. It's that I'm going through, and we're going through and doing things despite having those fears, because we have faith in God and trust that he will be able to provide everything that we do need. Yeah.
That's good. Wow. That's awesome. Beck, how about for you?
Yeah, so as Jen was talking about fear, I just think that our faith just has to be bigger than that fear. And fear, I think, is a problem when it paralyses us, when it stops us from stepping forward or stops us from doing anything. A little bit of fear is not such a bad thing. This sense of fear of moving to a new country, that's a big deal. I'd be fearful of that too. But you're doing it. You're doing it, and with that fear on board, but your faith is bigger than that. So I just think that, we have to keep our faith bigger than our fear. And so, the question, sorry, my relationship, practically, how does that look?
Yeah.
Well, like any relationship, you've got to invest the time into it, right? So just with a marriage, just with your children, just with friendships, we have to invest the time. So just like that, I have to make sure that I'm putting time aside for my relationship with God. And I find when I haven't done that, and I don't do that, and I don't make that conscious effort, then we drift apart. So it's a matter of finding my way back. So however that is, and it's trialing different ways in strengthening that relationship. So sticking in the Word. How do we read the Word, His Word, the best? Is it through devotions or sitting down with it every day? It's just trialing lots of different things and how we connect with Him. For me, I love worship music. That is my connection with Him. So that's how He speaks to me. That's when I feel Holy Spirit filled. So it's having worship music in my life every day. So it's it's great because I knew that song today. That's the first time you've sung that song. I love that song, that Victory, yeah. And I knew it because I'm playing worship music every day, so I'm getting his word into me that way. Because that's a practical way for me, because I don't always have time or make the time to sit down and read. I'm not a reader. I have to really force myself to do that. So it's finding little practical ways that I can still feel connected and close to God. It's staying connected in church. It's surrounding myself with the people who support me in my faith, who encourage me in my faith, and who show me and help me grow in that and teach me new ways. So yeah, it's surrounding yourself with people, and yeah, it's meditating on his word. I love finding a verse and just meditating on that and just sticking at that. I was thinking on the way to church today of what we could do just at home, practical ways of a daily Bible verse and just sticking that on the fridge every day and just having one verse and just, having that so the whole family can see that. And it's turning to God's word before anything else in my day. And that's always a challenge. So
yeah. What about podcasting and stuff? I know you were saying that you really like podcasts as well as another method. Is there anything that you're kind of listening to at the moment that's like really kind of growing your faith? And
I've listened to a few things over and over. I think Jackie got me onto Robert Mardu. He is extremely entertaining, very funny, and I love his word. It's very practical and it hits home. So yeah, I've been watching a few of his. Stephen Furtick's always popping up on my Facebook feed. But yeah, I think recently I've been... The good thing as well is we've just moved to Port, so now I've got that time in the car to listen for 15 minutes to different things. So
it's like being intentional with your driving time as well. I'm even finding on Spotify podcasts, for the car. So that's good. That's awesome. How about for you, Jared?
So in our faith, what does it look like in my daily life? I think there's an element of faith in everything we do. Mm-hmm. From day to day, like probably like everybody here is, practicing faith without even realising it half the time. Like a huge practical sense, huge step of faith I took this week was jumping in an airplane and flying to Perth. You pay some money in the counter, you jump in a steel cylinder and you end up in Perth. Who knows where you could end up,
Hawaii?
No
problem.
Nice.
I mean,
I keep telling my kids I'm boarding a flight to Bali. They're not too happy with that, but I never end up in Bali for some reason. But I think there's an element of faith in everything we do, like the way we raise our kids, tithing. Every time you talk to God, you're exercising faith because you're believing that there is a God. You're trusting that there is someone there that you're talking to. So that's probably what it looks like in my day to day.
Yeah, and it's amazing, isn't it? Because faith is used as such a word in church, isn't it? But it's so much more than that, isn't it? Everyone has faith, so I love that. That's really great. So look, hey Jen, for someone who is new to a relationship with God, how would you recommend that they kind of grow their faith?
My number one suggestion is definitely get into connect groups and get a discipleship partner.
So before we go any further, What are they?
What's a connect group?
Yeah, what's a connect group?
A connect group is just a group of people that come, you have a host and you go to their house, and sometimes they might provide food, or you just sit down and talk, and you might watch a video or read some chapters, and you just basically have a really nice casual chat, and you're able to not only connect with people in the church on a more personal level, but you're able to connect with God, with other people in the church as well. So I really highly recommend going to a connect group. And a discipleship partner is basically like just a one-on-one other person that you have who you talk to at least once a week, try to catch up with them, and they're kind of like your accountability, that's the word, accountability partner, and they ask you, you check up on each other and say, hey, you reading the Bible, what are you reading? Or, you going to church this week? Oh, you're not? Oh, okay, why? Just checking up on each other. Another word I like to call it is the nice nagging person. Kind of like my mum. Who's really great. She's been getting me to read the Bible a lot more nicely, be going, reading the Bible? Have you read the Bible yet? You should read the Bible. So really great.
That's gold. And it's kind of funny as well because I saw a funny video the other day where it was another church that did this video of someone asking someone else to be a D partner. It was all awkward. It was like they were going out on a date together. It was hilarious. So you got to think about that as well. Is who's going to be your D partner and who you can ask out on that date. So yeah, I love that. Jared, what about for you? What advice would you give?
My one is to be to actively, to take action. Both, what we've touched on earlier, make that phone call, actively listen as well for the positive and the negative, listen for the whole picture, not just what you want to be seeing.
Yeah.
Similar to yourself, like connecting with good friends, friends that you can talk about the good things and the bad things with. Which I think is really important because we've all got friends that we talk about how great life is. But I think most people only have a handful of friends that they can really confide in what you're touching on, and I think that's important. What are the notes of just people that we can be honest with, which is I think important, and we've been fortunate enough to find some good friends here. Who we can do that with, and like growing up in church as a kid, I had a really core, good group of friends who really helped me, and all through growing up and through my teens, and who I'm still very close with today. I can see that, with my kids, they're making some really good friends here at church, and that to me that's really important. Like who they're sort of looking to. As role models when they're growing up, and going back to the faith examples in the Bible that didn't work out so well, most of the time it was from the people who made the poor decisions were being influenced
human intervention
by others.
Yep.
So it's who you spend your time with, I think, is crucial, and then that's from a young age all the way through, not just when you're old,
That's good. If I was to give one challenge to everyone here today, I think it'd be at lunchtime in the cafe, find someone new and have a chat to them and develop that connection, or maybe it's someone you haven't chatted to for a long time, just say hi and catch up with them. Beck, what about for you?
I think it's important to remember that God has made us all so unique and that we're not the same as anybody else. And I think what we do is in everything, we compare ourselves with each other. So we can look at other people on their faith journey and, think, oh, why can't I be like that? Or why don't I have that? Or why don't I experience God in that way? Or, why doesn't God speak to me like that? Or how come I can't feel him? Or I think it's important to know that we're all on our own journey. It's an individual journey, and that God speaks to us differently. So it's a matter of testing and trialing that and stepping into that and trying to learn how it is that he speaks to you. So, try that through all these different ways, through connect groups, through discipleship partners, through reading, through listening, through, whatever it is that you enjoy doing, and learn how God connects to you spiritually. So, even knowing what your spiritual gifts are, and because, we all have different gifts. So,
So what's a spiritual gift?
So there is a spiritual gifts test, yes. So there's a test that you can do that answers a whole heap of questions about, what perhaps you find easy, or what you like, or what is your strengths. So, yeah, you can learn that perhaps you have a strength or a spiritual gift in prophecy, or a spiritual gift in leadership, or listening, or a whole heap of different gifts. Learning what they are and stepping into that, and I just find it. I remember even a conversation with my own Nana, who has been one of the best spiritual leaders in my life. She's a very spiritual person, and she's led our whole family unit through faith. And I love our in-depth conversations that we have around faith, but I even have found her looking to me in the way that I experience God, and wanting that. Yet she is someone who can pull any verse out, knows the Bible word for word. She is such an incredible knowledge in the Bible, and I don't have that. I don't have that gift. I can't remember verses like that. I just don't have that in me for it to sink and sit with me. I have the feeling, I have the relationship. So it's just interesting, and even having conversations with a woman like that, who in my mind is so spiritual and so faithful, yet she still longs to develop other gifts as well. So I think it's just remembering that we're all different.
Yeah, that's awesome. And knowing what that gift is in yourself, so that you can...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so good. Hey, can we give these guys a huge round of applause? I just absolutely love the insight that we've had from this series so far, and it is going to continue for another couple of weeks, which is awesome.